Thank you. How about we start with by checking in and maybe saying something also about where this call came from with the interest that we both have in this thing called apprenticeship.
Yeah, I just before this call, I was in a call about the archetypal body with as part of Sonia's 5 body journey.
Mm.
And straight after it, I just fell asleep before coming here. It's like I noticed going into archetypal domains, and my senses apprenticeship is another archetypal domain. But I noticed it is tiring for my system.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah. And it's also something that I feel a thirst for and a hunger in me. Like I feel I feel really glad to be here with you and talking. Like where it is of me is like the new terrain of apprenticeship.
Mm.
I'm really turned on by like walking in that really.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, and I want to hear from you, like yeah, hear about it from you as well.
I'm remembering that a few days ago I looked up on this. I have these post-it notes on my wall where kind of reminding myself and tracking my different projects. And I saw the one about the apprenticeship to apprenticeship, Millicent, and it's under work talks, possible work talks. And I remember I looked at it and I thought, oh wow, I that's just disappeared out of my attention, like out of my kind of most seen part of my workbench. And then this morning in Heart Gym, something happened when I there was a new person in the Heart Gym, and I had I had started the recording, and I wanted them to know the purpose of the recording is simple. It's I record only the part where I deliver the context of Heart Gym, and then I send the recording to Sonia, the originator of Heart Gym, to whom I'm apprenticing, and then I felt this fear that might convey this uh, kind of energetic picture that I'm not already a skilled Heart Gym space holder because I'm still apprenticing. And when I noticed that fear, I started speaking, and I don't remember how it went. I feel glad I have the recording because I could go and see. But it was something like apprenticing is always happening,
Yeah.
and and yet it's mostly unconscious apprenticing. Like people, you don't the child doesn't know that they're apprenticing to human adulthood with their parents and their teachers and their aunts and uncles
Mm.
maybe, but it's
Mm.
happening. And even most parents don't think of their relational space with their children as their children are their apprentices for being human. it's
Mm.
it's this inevitable thing. And even in the Heart Gym space, I could see how some people in their breakout rooms, maybe there's someone who has just more experience or more skill, and they become the the one that the apprentice is apprenticing to, but they're both apprenticing to space holding, which
Mm.
maybe is also what being human is being a space holder. And yet
Mm.
there are these domains and specialties within the wider domain of being a human, being a space holder, maybe being an authentic adult human space holder. And I just, and then I remembered that we had the call today about apprentice. I was like, whoa, thank you, Echo. What a cool, what a cool way to bring it back around and just boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you're speaking, um, I'm getting the image of how growth happens in the forest and in the garden at all layers. And it's not, and maybe the word apprenticeship isn't used so much for plants because it's not, but there's always these different stages of growth, and no one is better than the other. Like they're
Yeah.
all part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And- Yeah, and I find that so thrilling. And I love how in humans, like in us as having various stages of growth, like where I feel sad is that with the um like struck with like hierarchical thinking and in modern culture structures of business and schooling and education, it gets put as if one has more power or one is better or one is over the other,
Yeah.
whether that's by how we relate to each other or the words we use or the energetic um, that you make to somebody or with money. And what I get is that wherever anyone is at in their growth, whether they're apprenticing to somebody or something, that is just as valuable as the thing or person they're apprenticing to.
Yeah. And as a person who might have an apprentice or however many apprentices, conscious, unconscious, declared, undeclared, the value to me having an apprentice. Oh,
Mm.
even a couple of days ago, Jorge had created and had sent out invitations to this work talk about first position. And I saw it and I was turned on and I thought, I want first position work talks to exist. I want more first position work talks to exist. This is really the first one I've ever seen that I can remember. And Jorge and I have been on a team. Like we've been teaming up a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. And so I asked him, "Can I come to your work talk? In exchange for whatever value I bring to this space and any feedback and coaching you might want." And he was 100% yes. And it was so cool because when I was in the space, there were a couple of times that he flowed power to me, saying, Nicole is
Mm.
someone who, is, I don't remember what he said, but it was just letting it in was so nourishing. And it was cool to be in the space as with and having this apprentice uh, like spoken understanding without it having been made anything very big, but there was this, and it was so valuable to me. All of it was so valuable to me, even giving him feedback and coaching is valuable for me because I somehow am watching him and seeing what works and doesn't work and getting more clarity myself.
Mm,
And then also in how I choose to deliver the feedback and coaching. And it's like this whole other skill set that I'm developing as the one who has an apprentice,
hmm
including in my apprenticeship to Sonia, where I'm
hmm
working out how to not make it a hierarchical relating.
mm, mm. And will you say something about the about flowing power? Because my sense is that is a way to dissolve hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it's, there's a kind of unconscious way of doing it that's more like that reinforces hierarchy too, where, you know, the person's like, oh, you're so great, you're superior to me, you know so many things, it's, you know, and I'm just this lowly, I'm learning. But he did it so differently than that. It was more like I don't remember the words, but the attitude and the communication really that I got was something like, oh, we've been on this path together and I've learned so much from you.
Hmm
and and you know, if you have any, if anyone here has any questions about any of this, like, ask Nicole. She, like, I don't know if he even said that, but it was conveyed somehow. And it
Yeah.
was still from a place of we're alongside each other as questers, as pathwalkers, as edge workers. And yeah, and it's something like this almost refusal on his part to make himself small about it.
Yeah.
And a refusal to make me bigger than whatever size I really am also. That's what comes so far.
Yeah. And the other thing I get is there's something around when you are um, passing on your knowledge, when somebody is like apprenticing to you and you are able to use whatever quality of attention and noticing you've got um, to foster them, then it also does something in you because suddenly there's like new ground for the new growth to come through because you've I don't know, it's something like whatever was stored in there, whatever wisdom and noticing was stored in there, it's gone and to do its next job with the next people. And then
Mm.
you have space for the next layer of your evolution and refinement and noticing.
Yeah. Yeah, that goes with this part about uh, what I would say also maybe is the can be one of the purposes of having an apprentice is to replace yourself so that,
Yeah.
you know, one of the things I loved about Jorge delivering this work talk about first position is that there's no pressure on me to deliver a work talk on first position. He was doing it. And as there are more uh, people who have learned with me different distinctions or processes or tools, then they can become the person delivering those in the world while I move on to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so satisfying too to know someone, to have done, to have had so many spaces with someone, to have really got to know them so that I I can I do like it makes it so easy for me to just be like, they've got this. I can do something else.
Yeah.
The new people are in good hands with them. Yeah, and then to also not have that turn into like school, like have this checklist to make sure that you know all this before I let you, like before I trust you with, yeah.
When I think into my experience of, okay, so this, like, we're apprenticing for, to apprenticeship. Like this, that space in me is, I feel a lot of joy and life in there because I get the sense when I authentically lean towards the, I don't know, like the energetic structure or the matrix in somebody or a organization or a practice, and I lean myself towards that, I I am becoming an apprentice. I'm already an apprentice. And then whatever like doorway unfolds for me there, I'm already a yes to going through it because I've already chosen to lean in.
Wow.
And this is like it does something. It's like it's more of a intimate relationship with evolution. It's like a very intimate evolutionary shape, and it becomes very personal to me
Yeah.
because the first step was from within.
Wow. Wow, you saying that, I get this. Oh, I hope I can say it. It's when what I want to learn is comes from my own authority and my own like authentic wanting. And then it's almost like, oh gosh, I can think of so many times when this was the case in me where, and I maybe this is where that saying comes from, when the student is ready, the master appears. But when the clarity in me was so ripe that maybe I made myself interesting enough to Echo, that Echo would be like, oh, well, let's see what happens when I introduce you to this person.
Mm.
And that it is so different from when, say, a kid at school who's under the pressure of answering the question, what are you going to be when you grow up? That they
Mm.
decide kind of based on the menu outside and the customs of the patriarchy and school and career, and that they will, that they're going to become a biologist, say. They might have something in here that's like, oh, discovering how living things work. But
Mm.
if it's more like, I will become a student of biology, and then I'll hopefully find a, a training that with people that I can respect and have fun learning with. But
Mm.
it creates such a different experience of learning than this one that comes up inside and then is met by the universe.
Yeah. At the moment, I would say I'm an apprentice to beekeepers. This is one of my apprenticeships, but not officially, but officially in me. And there is this energetic leaning in me towards beekeeping because there's something in bees, there's something in the way that these beekeepers look beekeep that I it opens a yes in me. So it's something in the smell of the hives and the sound and the work and the rhythm of being connected to the seasons and the environment. And there's these little moments when like yesterday we're at a bee site and I was putting the boxes back on the hive, and a lot of the work is done in silence because the machine is going to blow the bees to get the honey. And I was doing this, and mm, the more experienced beekeeper, he was beside me, and in one moment he reached over and just adjusted it slightly and then went back to his work. And then I'm like, oh, okay. Now I know how to do it better next time. And it's these tiny moments of learning that just really light me up, like this direct coaching, direct feedback. And and because there's already this like necessity in me to learn and to grow, it just lands there and it blooms.
Wow. What I get about that too is that this beekeeper kind of just didn't even bother with verbal reality. It just went to with experiential reality. He's
Yeah,
like
just tweaked it.
put it in reality for you, and
Yeah.
then you could get it. Oh, I love
Yeah.
your example of. I have a similar one. I don't know. There's something about how it came about too, which was that as I as I move through the world, I sometimes see something that is handmade,
Mm.
and and I want to drink out of a mug like that, or I want to eat with a spoon
Yeah.
like that. But I don't I don't want someone else to make it. I don't want to kind of outsource the deliciousness of the artifact by paying
Mm.
someone to make me one or buying one off someone. I If I find one at the thrift shop, that's as close as I'll come. I'll be like, "Whoa, treasure hunt, score, $2 for this beautiful mug." But so I have this list of things that I want to learn how to make so that I can have them to use and probably to give as gifts to people too, because I just treasure them so much. So I've been looking for, in particular, a wood carver to apprentice to learn from. And I have an old and dear friend here on the Sunshine Coast who is a cabinet maker. And so I took this idea to him, and and I felt scared asking because I didn't want to assume that he would just teach me how to do something that he's really good at, out of his day when he could be doing work that earns him like hundreds of dollars. So I proposed that we team up and create a course and find other people who want to learn how to do this too. And then he could teach all of us, and then they'd pay him, and I'd get my learning too, and my spoon. And he started talking about apprenticeship from the perspective of a English traditional trained cabinet maker,
Mm.
and how and then he decided that he's not the person for me to learn this kind of woodworking with, because it's whittling, it's not really cabinet making or carving or. And I I told him I felt mad because I think he knows enough about wood to be able to be alongside me and other people while we learn, and that he doesn't need to be an
Mm.
expert at whittling.
Mm.
And I'm hoping that he reconsiders and thinks, if he decides no, he doesn't want to learn how to make his own spoon and he doesn't want to help other people learn how to make a spoon of their own, okay, no problem. If he really just doesn't want to do it, but to think himself not expert enough, I think that was also part of this hierarchical thinking that you have to have
Mm.
had a lot of experience doing something before you're any use teaching someone else how to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's really, yeah, that's a big part of my anger about how I see humans learning in the world, especially under the influence of the system of systems and their hierarchical, patriarchal structure.
Yeah. What I see is that as I don't have an analogy to this actually, but I see a web of consciousness and evolution folding out, and it can only do that if each person who has some knowledge or some one distinction in their system somewhere is then able to take on an apprentice for that,
Yeah.
and then an apprentice. And so rather than this layered you know, ladder hierarchy, it's actually a mycelium network of information transmission and fostering and empowerment. And then the next phase of life can come through.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I got this picture of, instead of it being like this, it's more like this, like more of a web than a ladder or something.
Yeah. And it like I had this experience of um so of writing this letter to Julian in maybe 3 years ago of I've noticed a necessity in me to the only word I had then was apprentice to her and whatever she was doing. And yeah, and I wrote that letter, and I only recently found out that after I'd written that and she got it, um, like what happened for her is that it called forward, it like called forth her adult. And so my sense is like this necessity in young people that is like it might be really tiny, this, whoa, I want that. It's so essential to call forth the elders and to call forth the wisdom that is sitting in it's here already, like the it's here already, but it's this necessity in the young, whether it's chronologically young or archetypally young,
Hmm.
to go looking for it is what brings it into the field. And um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, this whole thing for me was sparked when I was in a Women of Earth project empowerment call in a breakout room about what were the next steps for my project, and Chloe came in to, like, she was going from room to room finding out what was happening, and somehow or another we came to this part where she said, Nicole, I think the next step for you is to take an apprentice, to find an apprentice. And I just, it super did that. It was like all of a sudden I was, it's almost like the consequence of her saying that, I became even
Mhm.
more in my adult ego state just from hearing it. And then as that as that worked in me, as that did its magic in me, well, first of all, the other thing she said was something like, I if I had had someone like you show up in my life who was taking apprentices when I was 18 to 20 something, like this would have been huge. And I started, it really made a difference for me because I have such an orientation to, there's always more for me to learn, and here's what I'm not so great at yet. And it put me right in this orientation of, I have a lot of value, and I want I want others to have the chance to, I don't know, find out that they two can do these things, or and it was suddenly, here was me in my little world, and all of a sudden I was in this huge world where,
Mm.
yeah, it's really just the possibilities, just the territory of possibility just blew out from her saying that.
Mm.
And then I started seeing everything. It's a bit gremlin-y to say that, but I started seeing things in light of this distinction of apprenticeship, and including this old map of apprenticeship, like this one I was talking about that my cabinet maker friend has.
Mm.
But there are parts of traditional hierarchical apprenticeship that it's like the old map is not, you don't throw it out. It's part of the new map too. Like the flat Earth map is still, we still use flat maps, even though
Mm.
it's clear that the Earth is a sphere. And what you said about the beekeeper coming in and just experientially making this adjustment, that's a big part of the old map of, except they might come in with a bit of an attitude about it. Oh, and this touches on something that has been becoming more clear too, which is this attitude that sometimes someone who knows how to do something can have with someone who doesn't yet know how to do it. This attitude that you
Mm.
should have figured it out already. I
Mhm.
find this can be just, this can kill intimacy in any relational space, and especially in a relational space where one of the experiments going on is for this person to help this person learn the thing. And
Mm.
I find especially it happens between parents and children, when the parent, who in a way is the person the child is counting on to learn from, like kind of punishes or admonishes the child for not learning the thing that they themselves are in the position to have taught them. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's like there's this landmine in a way, that in this territory of learning together.
Yeah. What it comes up for me is that there's an emotional fear, because the next part of that is like the emotional fear in the mentor or the one apprenticing to, that what if they overtake me? Like this unconscious fear of what if they are actually better at this than me? And my sense is that is where the evolution happens, is when you learn to, well, go through that healing process and learn to be with the fear of 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 the unknown that happens when your how you view the world, or like what you know about the world, is superseded by another consciousness.
Wow. Yeah, thank you.
Because yeah, because I think this is also super stifling, is like you're going too slow and then also you're going too fast.
Oh
Because
yeah,
11,
it can be. It's
yeah,
like, who do you think you are? You think you can do this already? It took me
yeah,
10 years to learn how before I could do this. And it's like,
yeah, and you've got it.
mm-hmm. where, yeah, and this is, I don't know what it is about how some people seem to have more, I would say, dense thoughtware like that than other people. Mm, I mean, I remember my eldest son, when he was about 14 months old. I mean, he's my first child that I've really been with all day, every day, since birth and before. So I could I could tell what he could do and what he couldn't do quite easily because I was just around him a lot. And when he was about 14 months old, I knew that he could handle a paring knife, a sharp paring knife. And he wanted to try cutting his own apple or something like that. And I was like, go for it. You know, you're not strong enough that you can really hurt yourself, even with a sharp, sharp knife.
Mm.
And, you know, you are young enough that if you do cut yourself a little, you know, you'll just be glad you get to use a Band-Aid. And I was astonished at how skilled he was already. Like, and how
Mm.
quickly he learned to use a sharp knife. And I got that, you know, if he got off the stool that he needed to stand on to reach the counter with the knife, he was probably going to forget about it. Because I'd seen him how he was. You know, I give him a piece of banana to eat, and he'd be toddling through the garden, and his attention would go to something else, and he'd drop the banana, not because he didn't want it anymore, but because he just forgot he was holding it, and he wanted his, you know, his attention was somewhere else. And so the you know, oh no no, leave the knife on the counter, that was less about he needs to learn to leave the knife on the counter so he doesn't hurt himself, and it came more from a, oh, I know what's going to happen with that knife if he forgets about it when out there.
Mhm.
And yet I there were other times, and there were other people I saw interacting with him, where there was this effort to like teach them the rules, teach them to follow the rules or something like that. Yeah. And maybe it would be
Mhm.
different when it was me, according to which ego state I was in at the time.
Mm. Yeah, I find this really fascinating to question of like, how can I, is it really me? But like, and if I'm in a space, why do I choose to take care of something? Like, why do I choose to vacuum if I notice the floor is dirty? It's not because I've come from a place of an outside, like, it doesn't come from, I should vacuum the floor now. It's like, I just take care of the space. So the next thing I do is vacuum. And,
Yeah,
and my
I
sense is
just
like
did
that.
that. I just vacuumed, and I was thinking about that, totally unrelated to our call, but thinking about how I can vacuum because I want to vacuum. I want it to be clean in here. I want there to be
Yeah,
this elegance that comes with a vac of a comes from having a carpet that doesn't have a bunch of stuff on it.
yeah.
And I love that somehow. And I have in my life vacuumed because I should vacuum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
I
lot
just
in
want to
this
say,
about
Nicole, I've
what?
got only a couple more minutes for
Okay,
this call.
cool.
Mhm.
Well, in that case, my question is like, now what?
Well, I feel like we've opened up something that's got space to explore. It's
Yeah, a
got a
lot
lot
of
of
scope.
space to, yeah, and to
Wow.
build out and discover. Yeah.
Yeah. I I get this sense that I've been kind of unconsciously on the lookout for what distinguishes the old map of apprenticeship and hierarchical teacher-student learning with this new map of collaborative learning,
Yeah.
including in the part where someone has more skill than someone else. And some might call that like a natural hierarchy,
Yeah.
but more about what keeps the hierarchy from happening even when there is a difference in skill level. So I will I have a page in my beat book now about this, and probably a few other notes I've taken. But wow, I look forward to hearing again from you about other thoughts that come and other things you notice. And
Yeah. The sentence, the ecosystem of learning is
Mm.
stirring in me. Like,
Ooh, I love it. Cool.
yeah.
We'll be in
And
touch.
yeah,
That's a prediction.
we'll do that. Yeah.
Thank you, Millicent.
Thank you, Nicole.
I wish you a
Yeah.
wonderful
Well,
rest of your
yeah, I
spring
sure
day. Wait, fall day? What season it is? Is it in
thank you.
New Zealand now?
Summer.
Summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish you a
Yeah.
great summer
Thank
day.
you, Nicole.
Bye for
Yeah, you
now.
too. Bye.